All right, everybody, welcome back to our next interview in the series of Second City Detroit. I'm here with Margaret Edwartowski. Am I pronouncing that right? All right.
Edwartowski, yep.
All right, Margaret Edwartowski. I'm sorry. She received her BFA in acting from Wayne State University in 1996. She was a cast member with the Second City Detroit main stage resident company, and as well as writing and performing for original revues between 1996 and 2005. Margaret here is also a founding member of the Planet Ant Improv Colony at the Planet Ant Theatre, which has been her creative home since 2000. And she's also, wrote and directed the short film Greg Likes Me, which screened at the Boston Film Festival in 2005, as well as she also won the Gay Play series at the Ringwald Theatre in 2010 and again in 2014. Also, in addition that she's also won top honors at the 2010 Box Fest, the Hamtown Races in 2013. And her musical, jukebox musical, Call Me Cass, has held stage musical readings at the Ringwald Theatre, Performance Network Theatre, and the 1515 Broadway and the Marlene Boll Theatre, just to name a few. And currently, Margaret also serves as executive director for the Y Arts Detroit at the YMCA Metropolitan Detroit. And we're here to talk about Second City Detroit. So Margaret, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for working with me and the whole schedule. I know we had a few conflicts and different things like that. So I'm glad to have you here. Just different alumni who I was talking to, like, hey, you got to talk to Margaret. You definitely have to. She definitely has to give her story with Second City Detroit. So just to hop right in, what do you typically tell people when they ask you about Second City Detroit?
It doesn't come up a ton anymore, I'll be honest. For a while there, because we were visible, you would maybe get recognized. There's one member at the Y who still says Second City when I walk by. But when people ask about it, it's hard to really describe how intensely wonderful and creative that period of time was in Detroit comedy and in that pocket, because, and you'll see, I'm sure in our conversation, we'll talk about how many people went on to like incredible amounts of success from that enclave of people. But, it's like any movie where, a lot of successful people come out of one thing. It's that thing, that time that is a limited amount of time. Nothing will ever top it, and it gets more grandiose as each year goes on. But we really sort of founded this little family that spread to the four winds, sadly, for those of us still here in Detroit, but in a great way, because they've all gone to do some amazing things. So I think it's sort of like the nucleus or birthplace of this huge, I think, creative movement that came out of Detroit in the 90s and early 2000s.
Awesome. Yes, it was. Lightning can't strike twice.
I know. That's it. You missed it.
Yeah. So what was your improv experience prior to your stint with Second City Detroit? Did you have a foundation before that, or was Second City really what sort of kind of started it for you?
I was really thrust into it when I came to Second City in my theater career at Wayne State, or my studies at Wayne State. We did do a bit of, we did a Commedia dell'arte show, and, from time to time you do things here and there, but I really hadn't done anything. And then I had two friends, Larry Joe Campbell and Troy Scarborough, who were in the touring company at Second City. They're like, this is for you, you should do it. And I came in and got put in a touring company without taking any classes or anything like that. I just sort of thrown into the fire. It's like immersion learning language, you just
just push them in the pool, right in the deep end.
Swim.
Right. If she makes it, it was meant to be,
Exactly.
Don't help her. Now, what was typically a week like, back when you were a rostered, once again, I know like there's different things from being in the house team to different tiers, but what was kind of the regular life like there from week to week of a Second City performer,
I think there's a reason why this is a job you do when you're young, because it's comedy boot camp, right? It's a very intense schedule that you very much enjoy. But when you're a main stage resident cast member, let's say you're during a rehearsal process, so you would rehearse much of the daytime hours, say 11 to 4 or 5 or whatever, and then you'd have a dinner break wherein you'd be learning the scenes that you wrote during the day that may go into the show if you're in previews. Then you would do a sketch show or 2, depending on what day it is, and then you would do an improv set. And because you're 20 something, then you would probably, drink and have fun until 3, write a scene until 5, sleep for a couple of hours, and do it all over again. So and we did 7 shows a week, Wednesday through Sunday, I think it was.
Wow. So it's just pretty much like almost like a full-time schedule, like in some instances. Almost.
Oh, nonstop. And there was also a period in downtown Detroit where we were doing this TV show with Channel 7 where we would write sketches and host movies. And we would do that in the morning before we went to rehearsal. So, and that was like have stuff produced, between Monday and Friday, and then it would be on Saturday night. So
hashtag those days off.
Oh, but you didn't want to, like, that was your, passion. It's not like digging ditches,
Yeah, very true. Very true. Now, tell me about some of the best relationships you formed at Second City Detroit over the years, team members, mentors, teachers, that sort of thing.
I mean, first and foremost, some of the strongest relationships in my life came out of that period, including my husband. He was the musical director, so he was like the cute guy behind the piano. So I have Second City to thank for that. And a lot of us married out of, our casts. So that's not rare. But, well, you're not going anywhere meeting anyone else either. You're sort of in this vacuum, but also you're like-minded and doing similar things. So one of my very closest friends and longtime creative partner, Nancy Hayden, I met her there, and she was actually in the cast before I was and had moved away and then came back to town. And so through that network, I got to know her, and that's been a major relationship in my life. And then all of the sort of the folks who ended up in a troupe called the 313, sort of the Detroit expats in LA, which is a fairly long list, but that was like, I always equate it to like serving in the military together. That's just an experience that bonds you for life. So all of those folks. And then as far as like teachers, mentors, we were really fortunate because they brought through like a lot of great Second City directors for us to work with. But the 3 that I think stand out the most for me, the one that I learned the absolute most about writing from is Ron West. We called him the doctor. I think a lot of people call him the doctor, but he was just this amazing skill at looking at your work and finding new ways to make it more effective and to tool it up and also to have us work together. And he made you work, he wasn't a sitting down with your feet up kind of process. John Hildreth was like my very first director. He had been with us for a long time. And he just taught me almost everything I knew initially. And then Michael Gelman was a huge influence for me. So much so that like recently in the last few years, a project I was working on at the Y brought him in to teach, and everything he said, it was like going to church for me. I was like, yes, it is theater, and yes, we need to be good actors, and like all this like through his whole thing. So I didn't realize like what a huge effect he had on me. So create, and I quote all of these teachers all the time when I do creative work. So it's a whole foundation of major relationships in my life.
Yeah, still from the best with pride. So I could definitely see how they each had an impact. Like I had something here I can take this little nugget and kind of make it my own, kind of molding what my career is. Now, tell us, for some of us, are a newer generation, what were some of the vibes like of performing at Second City, Detroit, back when it was downtown. Like I remember still seeing the Second City sign up like in the maybe early 2010s or late 2000s, you know, even though it had closed up. Then the later years in Novi. Were you involved in the later years in Novi as well?
Yeah, I was in casts at both spaces.
Okay. Awesome.
It was it was some elements of performing downtown versus Novi were the same, and some couldn't be more different. But first and foremost, to be at the downtown space when it was a very like sort of heyday of Second City there. It also happens to be when like the Red Wings were winning like major championships too, and we're all sort of part of that network, you know.
We're proud to talk about the Red Wings. Like,
exactly. But also contextually, we're talking about empowerment zone era, right? So one of the things that really blows me away now in this sort of gentrified Detroit is that was a time when it was still like our city, right? And there was like tons of empty buildings. When we did that TV show, we used to run around with cameras and go to any like rando empty building. We did a parody version of Beastie Boys' Sabotage.
Good old urban exploring.
Somebody's got to have a copy of that. And it's just us running around in like empty city. At the same time, it was the sort of beginning of people wanting to come and do things in the city again. And there was so much you could do social commentary on because so much was happening. So that was like an incredibly memorable time. And what I think about all the time now is all these things we said were going to happen, right? All these things we postulated in our sketch sort of came to be, and the city completely changed from that time to now. What was very different moving out to the suburbs, I think it was a conversation we had when Jen Carlson came in to direct in Novi. He was talking about how the Second City, like in Chicago and back in Detroit, was when you're in a city, people are used to taking public transportation together. They're used to being in the same physical space, right, around other people. When you're in a suburb, and one of the big selling points of the theaters, there's tons of parking. You know, there's like, it was in essentially a very nice strip mall, you know. That's a completely different vibe, especially for a satirical theater. So you know, it's less of that communal experience. And also, when everybody's coming to the city, your social commentary is one thing, as opposed to a fairly conservative suburb during the George W. Bush era. You know, it's a very different vibe. And, you know, we used to hit race stuff, you know, right on the head with a lot of stuff downtown. And then if we would try to mount those same kinds of things in the suburbs, people weren't quite as comfortable laughing at that element of satire, I found. So it made it a little difficult for us to sort of find our footing, but I think we still wrote some good shows out there.
Yeah, very, very interesting landscape. You got like two different whole other landscapes, like your fish out of water, all of a sudden Novi. You know, I went to Wayne State as well. And even though like my stint there was more like in the mid 2000s, at the same time, there was still an element of, you know, there was places starting to pop up a little bit more as far as things coming back. But yeah, downtown was still desolate. I lived on Cass Corridor for about 3 years, and, you know, and just, you know, things change. And at the same time, you know, you kind of find a way through that. And like you said, you kind of adapt and you're in this new environment. So that's very interesting.
We also had trouble finding when we first moved to Novi, and we also, my husband and I were married when we went to Novi. We lived in Harper Woods on the east side, so we did quite a haul to get to work. But one of the things that was really funny in the beginning was, you know, our bar back in the day was the Seven Brothers in Hamtramck, and that's, you know, the one dartboard, one pool table, one long bar, you know, kind of Hamtramck, you know, divey spot that we loved so much. And then we got to Novi, we're like, where are we supposed, where's the dive bar for us? Like, where are we gonna hang, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard to, everything's so new and you know, chainish. It was hard to find the spot. So
Yeah, that is true. Because I'm kind of more of a kind of like, I like the pubs, the taverns, the dive bars, the hole in the walls. That's what's come with this new renaissance into Detroit. It's like everything's so shiny and new, and bright lights and people and loud music versus like the chill sort of, you know, the dive bar. Yeah, dive. I definitely relate to that. You know, you
like
can still find those places, but
yeah. Like we were, you know, hipsters before hipsters was a thing, in the element of we liked discovering our spot, right? And I think in that era, there were so many spots to be discovered because everybody was kind of in these like little pockets. There wasn't this, you know, there weren't duck boats and pedal pubs and
oh, there's so many of those now. I remember when it first came out, like, oh my God, this is cool. But then like 4 or 5 later, you know.
Oh, they're all kidding themselves. Somebody's driving that thing. Nobody's pedaling.
We got bed bills. So Margaret, tell us about some of your proudest moments, favorite memories at Second City overall. Like, you know, the hard times, the difficult times, the setbacks, the failures, but then the adversity and things that came from them. You know, you overcame because of that.
I think some of the proudest moments, I know one really sticks out for me that I don't know how it came to be, but the Free Press Awards, which now I think are called the Wilde Awards, but at the time they were the theater awards put on by the Free Press. And they were always at a different venue, but at the Gem, but for some reason they couldn't do it that year at the Gem. So they decided to have it at Second City, and they had us perform. And one of the things, and I say this with love, because I'm kind of on both sides of the fence as far as actor, as I
I'm
actor and improviser, or as they would call us, improver. So I'm a foot in both camps, but you know, obviously at that time I was definitely in the improv and sketch core of things. And there is, like, everybody, can I swear?
Go ahead.
Everybody shits on somebody, and creatively, right? So like actors shit on improvisers shit on like mimes and magicians or whatever. So we had always taken this sort of like, oh, that's not theater, that's goofy improv make-em-ups, you know. And we slayed, like we 100% killed. That whole house was, we did this scene from Toronto, Second City, where it's called Glass Mammoth, and it's basically like this what if scene of if David Mamet had written Glass Menagerie. And so it's like this Glass Menagerie with all this swearing, and it was the perfect scene for that group, and they just, you know, ate it up. And it was one of those like, you see, we're good at this. We, you know, people want to see this, you know. So that was like a really proud moment. I think the show Greetings from Viagra Falls, like that whole time was pretty special. And that was, you know, that was like in a pretty heavy hitter group, because like Larry Joe Campbell, Keegan Michael Key, you know, a whole lot of us. And that was also when we were writing that TV show. And then we wrote one of the best shows with Ron West that we had ever written. And that just really felt like top of the world. And, you know, that was when you would, you know, be stopped in Target. People say, you're that person from that show.
Right.
And then I had written this song. This is an example of Ron West being able to really like mine gold out of, you know, anything. I had written this song about the coming stadium, if this tells you what it is. This was when they were building Comerica Park across the street from us. And I had written this like My Fair Lady send up of this Ascot opening day. They're like, you know, highbrow thing. And he ended up working with my husband and the rest of the cast to create this really like soulful, you know, not Motowny, but more soul like song. And it was like, it slapped. Like it was really, really good. And, you know, the first time we performed it at opening was kind of this amazing thing. And it basically, the conceit was like, once you build a stadium, all the problems in the city go away. And then we sort of like list them off or whatever. So that was pretty good. But I mean, as far as like challenges are concerned, I think one of the tough things, it's twofold. One of the tough things about ensemble work, and also just my type, is for me within that ensemble, other people probably have, I'm not very objective because I'm talking about myself, but I feel like I was a strong player and a you know, big part of that cast, right? But when you pull different ensemble players out to pursue their individual careers, now you're looking at things through a totally different lens. And, you know, to be perfectly frank, all other types have a little bit easier of a path than a plus size woman. I think that was like a challenge, because even like in comedy, I mean, look at every like large man in a sitcom, and then look at the woman he's married to, right? They're not, other than like Mike and Molly and a couple of exceptions, it's the Fred Flintstone syndrome, right? So, you know, when Larry Joe Campbell moved and was suddenly on TV on Recording to Jim, my siblings were like, just go to LA and be his wife. He played his wife in Second City all the time. I'm like, that's theater. It's different, you know?
Yeah, true.
So I think, you know, it kind of, because we would be hired to do like, we were hired to do this video, and everyone in the cast had a different slot. And I just definitely felt like they didn't really know what to do with me, you know, because there isn't a whole precedent of, you know, having a lot of plus size women, unless it's a very special episode, right? So, so I think that was kind of a learning curve there. And it also sort of helped me discover like, okay, I don't want to be a famous actor. That's not, you know, that's not the path for me. It's, I don't, you know, there's a lot of trailblazing. Some other people have done some trailblazing, but you know, it would be challenging and emotionally, you know, probably not the happiest.
Yeah. I mean, and it's pretty much about finding your path and your footing. And once again, you could say, Margaret, you were pretty much ahead of your time, you know, and a lot of pretty much the actresses, or just way comedy is today, does have you to think as far as these trailblazing that, you know.
Well, that's why I look at like Lizzo and Adie Bryant, and, you know, I'm not a Rebel Wilson fan, but I'm a fan of what she's done, even though now she's skinny. You know, it's, things have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a ton, but a little bit. And then I think the last sort of challenge out of it is when you leave a stage, because you just kind of know when it's time to go. I mean, unless they fire you, but you know, when you leave a stage, then it's, what am I going to do with my life, right? And a lot of people move to other cities where there's more entertainment industry, and I, for a lot of reasons, stayed here. And then it's, well, what do I do with everything that I learned? There isn't anything comparable to this work. It's mostly a tool for other things. So I had to kind of find my way creatively. And that just turned me into a sandbox builder, where I was like, I want to play. I need somewhere to do it. All right, fine. I'm going to make my own thing. So that kind of came out of that.
Okay. Now, tell us, Margaret, about, you know, like I said, when we got into your bio earlier, what are some things coming up that you're excited about, projects, ventures you'd like to share with the audience? This will be going out on YouTube, Twitter, and different platforms, to, you know, Facebook, of course, to share. So what do you got going on as far as share with the audience?
Speaking of YouTube, I have a YouTube channel. It's just under my name, Margaret Edwartowski. If you figure out how to spell my name, you'll have the joy of a lot of hours of footage. But two of the main things that are on there, one is a show called Hey Girl that I sort of started during lockdown to highlight women in this work, in sketch and writing and performing. So there's several episodes of that, which I haven't done for a while, but I'm definitely going to bring back. And then There's a lot of clips from that jukebox musical you mentioned, which is called Call Me Cass, and it's a biography of Cass Elliot, or known as Mama Cass from the Mamas and the Papas. So that's my, what I call Jersey Boys retirement plan, because I need that thing to take off so I can start, buying a place up north or something to finish things off. And then sort of my new direction in the last few years has been in writing romance novels.
Okay.
I am not published yet, but I am working towards traditional publishing. But I do have a website. It's Maggie Elliott is my writer name with one L, ELIOT, maggieelliott.com. So you can read, I have a blog on there and some descriptions of some of the books. And I've won a couple of book awards in the last year, so it's going well.
All right. Well, cannot wait. I will include, once again, if you can forward some of that stuff along as well, I include that in the bio and description. So as we wrap up here, Margaret, 2 last questions for me. Sure. Tell me about maybe some of maybe either the comedy, acting, because once again, when it comes to comedy, improv, acting, each one wouldn't be where it is without the other, So what do you feel like maybe, you give me your maybe 1 to 3 top, I'd say maybe comedy inspirations, maybe someone you watched as a kid, someone you worked with at Second City, who are maybe some of the ones that inspired you the most,
I mean, we watched the crap out of Carol Burnett. Like, we watched every episode, and that was like such a comedy, education, but also, just some amazing actors on there. So she's definitely a hero. I saw Tina Fey on stage in Chicago with one of the best casts. It was the first time I saw a show in Chicago, and I'm a huge fan. Also as a writer though, and some of the people that I really love kind of do both and do them both well. As far as our era of comedians is concerned, like the Bible is Mr. Show, like with Bob and David, David Cross and Bob Odenkirk, especially because they were like the beginning of when long form was really a thing, and they wrote these amazing transitions, and their sketches were just so incredibly funny. And so there's like a language there. If you know it, and if you don't, so if you refer to Mr. Show and somebody gets it, you're like, you're in, So I mean, I think those are
one of those gems.
Oh, amazing.
And finally, Margaret, can you tell me a little bit about what legacy means to you, and how do you feel your legacy or impact in, comedy, improv, Second City? How do you want that to be remembered?
One of the things that I found a passion for in that time, we were talking about sort of like after you leave and like, what am I going to do with my life? One of the passions I discovered I have is for making opportunities for other people. And now I do that in my job every day with the Y, because I oversee the Y Arts branch, and we create arts programming for youth and families and underserved youth. So for me, I want to have my legacy be connecting as many people as possible with a creative endeavor that enriches their lives, whatever that may be. For me, it's writing. For other people, it could be pottery or dance or whatever. But I don't think you can live a fulfilled life without some sort of creativity firsthand, like you being creative, not just taking it in. So, and then, positivity and caring and kindness and just being good to one another. Like, if I can encourage any of those things, those are the things that I really want to hopefully be remembered for.
Awesome. I couldn't have put it any better. Be a good human, just serve and others.
We have to live on this planet together. Why not, be nice to each other?
Man, great point, Margaret. So Margaret, thank you so much for this interview. This will be going out within the next few days to a week or so. So once again, Margaret Edwartowski. We're gonna get along just fine.
Edwartowski.
Edwartowski,
Got it.
Miss Margaret Edwartowski of Second City, Detroit. Thank you so much for meeting with me, having this session to just hear another story of the experience of Second City, Detroit and beyond, and looking forward to what you have coming next. So we'll see you guys later, and see you later, audience.